Okay, right, we are live. Okay, welcome everybody. I'll go through the usual preamble in regards to housekeeping and such like. First of all, I'm Councillor Jason Zackley, Cabinet Member for Safety in the Community, and I'll be chairing today's meeting, which I suspect will be a rather brief meeting. Housekeeping rules as normal. If the continuous fire alarm sounds, please evacuate the room and public gallery by the stairwells. Don't attempt to use the lifts, and please assemble near Queen Victoria's statue in Guildhall Square. In order to comply with the Guildhall Trust Fire Marshal regulations, anyone who signed in at the Guildhall reception desk should sign out when leaving the building at the end of today's meeting. Presumably that's in case there's not a fire. Everyone speaking via a microphone will be recorded and broadcast on the website, including those making deputations, but we have no deputations today. Members of the press and public are also permitted to record the meeting on the understanding that neither disrupts the meeting nor records those stating explicitly they do not wish to be recorded. But once again, we have no members of the public or the press. Please can anyone use the microphones, and remember to switch them off when they've finished in order for the camera to move to the next person speaking. We have all read the reports, apparently, so this introduction says. So officers, please just highlight any developments that have occurred since the publication. Now, if I could just go around the room and ask people just to introduce themselves so our multitude of viewers know who's who. I've introduced myself, so we'll go across to our admin, which is a change for today.
Alison Harper, Democratic Services.
Roy Golding, Head of Community Safety.
Simon Newell, Private Sector Antisocial Behaviour Coordinator.
Councillor George Magic of the Paulsgrove Ward in Opposition.
John Smith, Councillor, Eastern Craneswater.
Okay, thank you very much. That's everybody who's introduced themselves. We are down to two opposition spokespersons now following changes within the Labour Group nominations. If I can move to the first item on the agenda, that is apologies. And we have no apologies as far as I'm aware. Nope. Do we have any declarations of interest, colleagues? Nope, neither do I. So, third item on the agenda, which is white ribbon accreditation on pages 3 to 6 of the report, to be introduced by Caroline Hopper. Across to you, Caroline.
Thank you. This is a noting paper. It's noted that the city leaders have made a pledge to end male violence against women. It's topical and timely to be taking this action. Within Portsmouth, domestic abuse continues to be the largest driver of violent crime, accounting for 44% of all assaults recorded by police. And nationally, violence against women and girls has now been acknowledged as a national threat. In taking this action, the Council will be seeking to develop an action plan which seeks to ensure that the drivers for violence against women are extinguished across all of our services through organisational cultural change and also by reviewing the way in which we deliver our services. We are hoping to achieve the accreditation this year and will be applying imminently. This is just one part of the work that we're doing in the Council to address violence against women and girls. The others include the domestic abuse strategy and the Safer Streets programme. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. As I'm sure you've read, the report is fairly explanatory. Does anybody have any questions or points they'd like to raise? Nope. Okay, I'll just say thank you for this, Caroline. It's another show of commitment, I think, by us as a local authority in tackling what's clearly a very important issue. And again, I'm delighted to say that all parties in this room have been supportive of this. And again, another demonstration this can be and is a cross-party issue and one that we all are committed to. So thank you for that. I say it's a report for noting, and the only thing I'd say on it is in further to the meeting that we had this morning, make sure that we've signed up to the White Ribbon Pledge individually as members that are obviously part of this particular portfolio. So thank you, Caroline. You can either stay to the end of this meeting, or you can escape now. It's entirely up to you. But thank you very much. Item 4, which is in fact the last item, relates to private sector antisocial behaviour coordinator role, pages 7 to 10 of the report. We have Simon Newell with us today, who actually is the private sector antisocial behaviour coordinator. He's kindly come along after I invited him to attend this, but I shall pass over to Roy to actually introduce the paper. Mr. Golding.
Thank you. Again, this is an information-only paper, but it was to update the Cabinet member on the progress of the role of the private sector antisocial behaviour coordinator. As you've introduced, Simon is in post at the moment and doing a good job, and possibly we'll get some words from him a bit later on in terms of some questions. But the role came about from councillors that were identifying an increasing amount of casework related to the private sector that, I mean, we call sticky cases, complex cases, where there's often several agencies that may be involved or needed to try and resolve the issues that are there. So in terms of the council and other agencies and members of the public, when they got those types of cases, there was often a struggle in terms of a single point of contact. So are they contacting the police and noise team, safeguarding, all those types of teams. So previously, we used to have an ASB unit that had this type of role, and that post was made redundant in 2017 due to cuts at that time. The theory was, for example, there was a police officer within the team as well, that we would upskill the police to respond to antisocial behaviour in the private sector, and they would be all upskilled rather than individual officers. Noise team, housing associations would also be responsible for their areas of work and understand how to share information. That was fine, but as the years progressed and further cuts, it did mean that it became more difficult, and some of those relationships were lost. And those that were suffering from antisocial behaviour were struggling again to get cases resolved or to find out who was responsible for their issues. So the good news was that in June we sort of slightly tweaked it, but we introduced the new role that Simon's in, the private sector antisocial coordinator, and part of that role was to again go into making those contacts with the various points of contact for the other agencies, to pull together a joint response when tackling the issues that the public was suffering from. So from the 13th of June, Simon's been in post. Within that, a short space of time, I mean, the numbers on under 3.4, we've got 161 cases. It would probably be at least 200 at this point that Simon would have dealt with. And some of those he would have dealt with quite quickly, because it is often just a case of signposting to the appropriate agencies or understanding that there's work ongoing. Other cases that, say, the more complex ones, Simon will case manage, and he's chaired a number of multi-agency meetings, from the police to social housing landlords to safeguarding, adult safeguarding teams, children safeguarding teams, just to get everyone together and then have this holistic approach to tackling the ASB. What the danger was, either cases weren't being dealt with, is the worst case scenario, or even if they were, sometimes partners were either duplicating or conflicting with each other's work. So this post, by bringing it all together, it was able to then get on the table all the various issues, all the different partners' responsibilities and roles, and agree an action plan moving forward. I must admit, I used to do a lot of that. It's taken that work from me, so it's been a bit of a godsend there. But also, I think social housing landlords are recognising the positivity of that role as well. So we've got a number of housing associations, I think, that are approaching Simon direct. And there was Adbury yesterday, as an example, where they were struggling with one of their cases. And Simon, within a short space of time, the same day we got the inquiry, has made some good progress, and a meeting's been undertaken. So that's one example. In addition to that, there's the committee task and coordinating group. Simon will attend that. He'll deputise for me. I now attend the daily police briefing. That's a really good new innovative in terms of PCC attending the police briefing, so we can deal with those types of issues. So Simon again will deputise for me at that one. Simon's background is he's got many years' experience as a community warden. So he's sort of brought those skills across. He's hit the ground running. So the team that would normally deal with some of these types of issues in the past, since we abolished the ASB private sector unit, would have been the community wardens. Now they're very busy team, and it's very difficult for them to case hold. So Simon's able to take those cases on. So we will still deal with waste and dog fouling, those types of things, and the community wardens will deal with those straightforward ones. But where it gets complex, this is where it gets passed to Simon, and then Simon sort of does his magic, for want of a better word. It was a fixed term post until the 13th of June. Obviously, we're just confirming the finer details of the budget, but I'm confident. I think that we're in a position to show that it's working, it's making a big difference to residents, and that we'd like to continue that into the future.
Roy, thank you very much. And indeed, on that last point, as I spoke to Simon just before we started the meeting, we confirmed that this morning, so the post is actually now secured, so it will continue funded ad infinitum. Well, as long as we're around, I guess. Any questions or points? Obviously, Simon's here today. He came and spoke to my colleagues in an informal council cabinet briefing probably about a month or so ago. Very useful. And whilst there is... The only one thing I would say about the report, and it's not really a criticism of the report, it's just a factual info. You've listed the amount of cases that Simon's done. It might be useful to see that, how that pans out across the various wards across the city. Clearly, I'd expect some wards to be heavier than others, but just to show, in effect, that all wards can be responded to. So it's hopefully not a north-south divide situation. It's just Simon's there to cover any particular issues that crop up, whatever ward they're in, whatever part of the city. So, colleagues, do you have any questions or points you'd like to make in regards to the report? And I say either address them to Roy and Simon, if you'd like to say a few words yourself in a minute, you're quite welcome to, but it's entirely up to you. George.
Yes, just a point of clarity. Does this figures include the things like the Marriott Hotel issues we had and the Village Hotel? Does that include those type of things?
If Simon's been involved in that, they certainly would. There are certainly casework. So, for example, I think Councillor Brian Madgwick, is in contact with a case at the moment. We can't go in details. That one, because it's not a local authority housing, and I think he contacted the housing office, that got handed over to Simon yesterday. That will be counted. The Marriott Hotel, I'm not sure whether that one got forwarded to you directly, so possibly not. But where Simon has an involvement, that would be there. So in addition to this, there are various other data collection points in terms of what the wardens do. The wardens tend to do about 1,000 pieces of work a year. That's how we've averaged it out. So this is over and above that. But yeah, any councillor inquiries, a non-local authority would certainly fall for Simon, and we'll definitely break down the ward figures. We can also break down where the referrals come from. So councillors are one of the main referrals along with members of the public and housing associations. I don't know if Simon wanted to...
I think...
Sorry, George.
I was going to say, I think a breakdown would be really useful as well, and to see the source of information. Maybe not obviously name councillors personally, but yeah, know whether it's a councillor or a resident associated one. And just literally out of interest, what's dog patrol? What's that as in relation to antisocial behaviour?
So we get various patrols to do within the city. Sometimes it'll be related to dog fouling or an issue on a PSPO with a dog off being in, say, a cemetery. So if a member of the public comes forward and says that we're having issues with dog fouling or a dog off the lead in the cemetery and so on and so forth, we will then instigate some form of patrolling in that particular location to minimise the issues and educate, and if you have to, enforce as well.
What I would say on that one then, so normally that would fall under the community ordinance, but this one then, I think in the past we've done community protection notices in terms of a more persistent dog behaviour issues. So it wasn't just that Simon dealing with a dog foul or a dog off a lead. There would have been an additional need, I think, for Simon's expertise on that one, over and above just the potential of educating or issuing a fixed penalty notice.
Okay, John?
I agree with you, Chair, and what Councillor Madrick's just said about the ward breakdown figures would be really, really useful. The question I just have is, with regard to, I see that the antisocial behaviour other is the biggest at 107, and it's teased out as youth nuisance. Is that because you're classifying youth antisocial separately, or is that a separate heading on its own for a reason? What's the difference between youth nuisance and antisocial behaviour?
Yeah, I don't know if you want to come in on that, Simon, but it is a bit clunky in terms of the way, because we've got to record it against certain categories, just so we can, it helps us in terms of looking at our demand and the types of responses that we do. So there are sort of, in addition to all these categories, there would be a little description as to what we would include in that. In terms of the, Simon probably the best place to maybe talk about what the 14 youth nuisance ones, why that would be different to the 107 ASB other.
As the role is evolving all the time, like Roy said, we are looking at trying to create specific definitions of antisocial behaviour. Some of the jobs would have come from maybe a housing association. It would have been specifically related to young people causing antisocial behaviour, so I have a specific definition for that particular style. That then allows me then to open up avenues to other agencies, such as play services, youth clubs and so on and so forth, around getting identifications and then creating a route in where we can sort of implement some education or some other work with those particular individuals. At the moment, yes, it's one group within a large bracket, but as the role evolves, we can become more specific around what we do need to use as antisocial behaviour other.
So, under antisocial behaviour or other, there's no youth in that. They're all put under, for the 14 cases are the 14 cases. There's nothing in the other.
No, that's the specific cases. But under the other, there could be other underlying issues related to young people. It could have been drug related, could have been other issues as well. But at that particular time, the case was deemed to be youth nuisance.
All right, there are no further comments or questions. I don't think there's anything else we can add. Simon, did you want to add anything in regards to your post? Or?
From myself, it's basically to say thank you, Councillor Zachary, and obviously the members for putting your faith in myself and in this role, and I will do what I can to my best abilities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, I think it was useful. I mean, I think the administration felt, and I'm sure other administrations would probably felt the same thing as well, and that it was useful to have a specific point of contact, an identified officer that we could go to. And this is Simon's first year, but I'm sure as he establishes himself further in the post, members will become more familiar with who they can go to directly if they don't already know now. So good figures for the first year, good in so much as we can deal with them. Obviously not good in the fact they keep occurring, but it's useful that we can keep a track on these. I say in future, any future reports that we do, if we can at some point include a ward breakdown for it, and obviously I hope we tell our respective groups, I'm sure they're all aware anyway of Simon's existence now in this specific post, and there's someone they can go to as and when the need occurs. So without wishing to sound any more formal and boring, thank you very much indeed for coming along today, everyone here, officers and members. Thank you very much, and at around 2:22, whatever it may be, I formally close today's meeting and release you all back to your normality lives. Thank you very much. Aye. End of meeting.